Inside the lobby of one of New York's biggest tech firms, Michael sat in his wheelchair, hands clasped tightly in his lap. He looked at the executive in front of him with hopeful eyes. This was his 5th job interview. Still, he tried to hold on to the excitement in his heart. The executive glanced at his resume, his face unreadable. "Look, Michael, your resume is impressive, but we're not sure if you have the physical capability required for this position." Michael's chest tightened. Physical capability? His mind was his greatest asset. Wasn't that what mattered? "This is an office job. What does physical capability have to do with it?" he asked, his voice steady but firm. The executive hesitated for a moment but didn't change his response. "We just don't have a position that would be suitable for you." Michael had been through this exact scenario countless times. Doors kept shutting in his face. Not because he wasn't talented, but because they saw him as the man in the wheelchair, not as an engineer. As he left the interview, his hands trembled with frustration. He had spent years studying, graduated from top universities, and received prestigious awards. But his wheelchair overshadowed every achievement, rendering them invisible. With one last shred of hope, he applied to Amazon's upcoming innovation event. This was his final chance. If he failed here, he would have no choice but to give up. The innovation event was a spectacle of massive digital screens, holographic presentations, and groundbreaking technology. CEOs, investors, and young entrepreneurs filled the space, discussing the future. Michael wheeled himself to his assigned booth. This was it, his last shot. But no one stopped to listen. People passed by, glancing briefly before moving on, not even acknowledging him. When a group of investors finally approached, Michael's heart pounded. He quickly began presenting his project. "This is an AI-powered bionic prosthetic system designed to enhance mobility for individuals with disabilities." One of the investors interrupted him, raising an eyebrow. "Sounds like a great idea, but wouldn't it be difficult to manage? I mean, for someone like you?" A hot wave of anger welled up inside Michael. Not again. Just then, through the bustling crowd, a familiar figure appeared. Jeff Bezos. Wearing his signature blue shirt and a knowing smile, he stopped in front of the booth, placed his coffee down, and studied Michael's project. "Tell me what you're working on." Michael froze for a brief second, but then a fire lit up in his eyes. This was it, his moment, his last chance. Michael took a deep breath as he sat across from Bezos. The world around him seemed to blur. In this vast hall filled with investors and business tycoons, for the first time, someone was truly listening. The man in front of him wasn't looking down at him. He wasn't filled with preconceived notions. Jeff Bezos was looking directly into his eyes, genuinely wanting to understand. Michael leaned slightly back in his wheelchair and began to explain his project. "This is an AI-driven bionic prosthetic system designed to revolutionize mobility. It reads brain signals and moves accordingly, providing users with a completely natural experience." Bezos examined the papers on the table. The formulas were flawless. The schematics were professional. Michael wasn't just a bright engineer, he was a visionary, someone capable of starting a revolution. But Bezos stopped flipping through the pages and looked up. "How many companies have you pitched this to?" Michael tensed. He had answered this question so many times that he was tired of even hearing it. "Dozens, but none of them took me seriously." Jeff narrowed his eyes, his brows furrowing slightly. "Why?" Michael's voice trembled. This was the hardest answer to give. He briefly glanced at the documents in front of him, hesitated for a moment, and then lowered his head. "Because I don't have legs." A heavy silence filled the room. Michael was used to this moment. People usually gave him a sympathetic look, changed the subject, or politely ended the conversation. But Bezos's expression changed. There was no pity, no shock, only anger and understanding. "Not having legs? Does that mean your brain doesn't work?" Michael looked up, surprised. No one had ever asked him something like that before. People always spoke about his perseverance, his courage, but no one had ever evaluated him as just an engineer. Bezos leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. He placed the papers back on the table, interlocked his fingers, and locked eyes with Michael. "This isn't just a project for people with disabilities, is it?" A spark lit up in Michael's eyes. It's for everyone. This could start a new era for people with disabilities, but it won't just change their lives, it will transform the entire tech industry. Bezos took a moment to think. There was something about this man. Prejudice, corporate short-sightedness, lack of vision. The world had overlooked this engineer, the very person who might develop one of the most groundbreaking innovations of the century. Jeff Bezos leaned forward, his expression serious. If I gave you a lab, a team, and unlimited resources, could you make this happen? Michael's breath caught in his throat. Was he really asking him this? For years, the same words had haunted him. This job isn't for you. You can't work here. Someone like you could never succeed. But now, one of the most successful businessmen in the world was offering him unlimited opportunity. Michael closed his eyes for a brief moment, letting the weight of the moment sink in. Then he lifted his head, his voice unwavering. Yes, but no one has ever given me that chance before. Jeff Bezos smiled slightly. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a business card, and placed it on the table. Someone just did. Michael reached for the card with trembling hands. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a chance to reclaim his life. But what Michael didn't yet know, this wouldn't just change his life, it would be a turning point for the world. A few weeks later, Michael found himself inside one of Amazon's largest research laboratories. But the challenges hadn't ended. Some engineers looked at him with skepticism. What is a disabled guy doing here? Developing technology while sitting down? How's that supposed to work? But Michael crushed every doubt. Within just a few weeks, he made groundbreaking progress. He optimized the AI software, doubled the response speed of the bionic prosthetics, and made adjustments that accelerated the project's timeline from months to mere weeks. One day, one of the engineers reviewing his calculations froze, eyes widening. This can't be right. He quickly gathered the team, and they reviewed the numbers again. The realization hit them like a wave. Michael hadn't just made the prosthetics faster, he had also reduced the system's error margin to nearly zero. He wasn't just part of the team anymore, he was at the center of it. Just then, Jeff Bezos entered the lab. He spotted Michael at his workstation, completely focused, deep in thought. He walked over and leaned in. "How's it going?" Michael looked up. His eyes no longer held the same doubt or hesitation. There was fire in them now. "We're just getting started." A year later, Michael's groundbreaking bionic prosthetic system was unveiled at an international technology conference. As he stepped onto the stage, thousands of people erupted into applause. But in the front row, one person was watching him with unmistakable pride: Jeff Bezos. "I'm not amazed because I hired this man. I'm amazed that no one else gave him a chance before." Michael's eyes welled up. For years, people had looked down on him. Now they were applauding him. But he knew this wasn't the real victory. The true victory was opening doors for people like him. Now every person with a disability had the opportunity to chase their dreams. This wasn't just a success story, it was a revolution.